Hello, everyone. Hello, Jamie. Starting with Microsoft's 2026 Work Trend Index, where we're going to discover some new findings. Microsoft Work Trend Index reports are really good, and they come up with a lot of new projection in terms of what is happening with the AI, etc. And this report is also a very exciting one.
And this one's no surprise to me, but OpenAI and Anthropic are trying to get more into the enterprise space, and they're doing that by looking to acquire some service firms to do implementation.
Anthropic continue to rock the corporate world. Now they have several new agent templates and cookbooks, etc., available for the financial services industry, where you could use them as plugins, etc., in the cloud core work, as well as the managed agent to automate modeling, KYC, valuation checks, pitch books, etc., or month-end close workflows.
And although you just mentioned that there's no quote unquote large foundational models that were released this week, there still were new models that hit the streets, and those are from OpenAI related to voice models, everything from translation to transcription and also real time speech. So we'll talk about all that and more and its applicability.
Stay tuned for a quick introduction. Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
All right, great. So I think, Jamie, this week we will talk about the report that came out from Microsoft. It's actually collaboration between Microsoft and Harvard this year. This Professor Karim Lakhani and several others have collaborated with Microsoft. Microsoft has been doing this report. I think this is the third edition. And the last report that came out last year was pretty good. It was talking about the emergence of the frontier firms. This year, actually, that report talks about some of the exciting new trends and insights that they have observed. What they do is basically they take tens of thousands of signals that come out from Microsoft 365, literally hundreds of thousands of signals, as well as a global survey of 20,000 AI users that shows them where things are heading. And let's start with some of the I would say visible signals that came out and has been consolidated into the report. So first of all, nearly half of AI usage is focused on high value cognitive work. So this is one of the finding where you can see here on the screen as well, but I will also keep talking about it for the people who are not actually on the video. And if you see on this particular screen here, AI is really lifting the ceiling on the individual potential. 49% of all conversations actually support cognitive work, which basically means helping workers analyze information, solving problems, evaluating, and thinking creatively. The remainder is split among working with people like collaboration, that's about 19%, or finding information, 15%, and producing work, some sort of an artifact. But half of the work is real, solid cognitive work. And employees at every level are now basically using it as an assistant to do the work. On this screen, you can see how that actually splits into different categories, like analyzing, reasoning, deciding is about 49%, interacting with others is 19%. So this kind of a tree map shows the distribution of the work in matters of how the employees are using it. So AI is basically expanding who can do high value work. Some of the work is actually breaking through in terms of the kind of work that employees could not do before. They are actually able to do it now with the help of AI. So that's a real new impact that it is actually making. 66% of users are reporting to spend more time on high value work, and 58% say AI enables output they could not produce previously. So that's one of the main findings. In terms of the other findings, you can also see here on the screen that how there are four quadrants of the work, and it is basically split in the terms of how the human directing to human supervising, that kind of linear scale, the work falls into that. And on the other dimension, it's basically agent as an assistant or agent as a teammate. Agent as a teammate is a much more powerful way of working. So if you see there is one category of work which is basically delegation. The human is setting the direction and the agent is executing. And that looks like, for example, turning raw notes into a structured recap, update, or draft deliverable. Pretty much, you are delegating that kind of work that you used to do earlier. And that's very true. In fact, we were having the discussion this week as well that some of the people like me, I don't know when was the last time I actually took the hand notes. I'm so reliant on the Copilot to actually do the job, and it does so much better job. The only thing is that you have to remember to make sure that it is on. Um, the other kind of work, which is also basically collaboration, where the work needs both of you, and this is like a high-end work where you are using the agent as a teammate, and you're also providing your supervision. You're not just basically delegating. So this is like, for example, refining a proposal through multiple rounds of feedback or building an analysis where each result reshapes the next question. So it's a true collaboration and a cognitive work. The other category is asking, which is basically just simple. You are sending a query, it's a quick exchange of information. Consider it more like a task rather than an outcome based, right? For example, it's like a quick ask that call for quick exchanges, basically like looking up a fact, date, or definition, or rewriting a sentence or summarizing paragraph and all that thing. Um, the fourth category is exploration, which is you're using the agent as an assistant, but you're also actually doing a lot of work. For example, you're testing what AI can do, you're pushing the limits. You're testing whether Copilot can handle a new workflow, for example, before relying on it, or trying different prompt strategies for an unfamiliar workflow. So this is like an exploration kind of category. These are the four quadrants of work. The other finding that came out from this report is that the job of every leader is to re-architect work. One of the things that is happening is, Jamie, that the most organizations are not yet built to capture the value of this expanded human agency. That's a conclusion of this section. And if you see on this screen here, it shows that workers are ready, but the organizations are not, by and large. You can see that, for example, the one of the categories is stall, which is like the lowest quadrant in this chart, which shows the individual capability of the people in using AI, and the other is organizational readiness. So low organizational readiness, low individual capability, this is the quadrant where things are stalled. It's about 16% of the firms. The both individual AI practice and organizational AI conditions are low, right? The other thing is, let's say you increase the organizational readiness, but the individual capability you haven't really invested. The people, the culture is such that you're basically the people are not really learning. You are stuck with a low performing team, and this is like unclaimed capacity. Now, ultimately, this is not a huge number. This is about 5% of those firms where the individual AI practice is low, organizational AI conditions are high. This could be companies like AI native companies, but they have some sort of workforce for some reason they are not able to exploit it. The third category is blocked agency, where the individual capability is high. You have really smart people, really AI knowledgeable people, but the organizational AI conditions are low. And that could be anything, whether the system, incentive, norms, metrics, it could be anything. That's what defines the organizational AI condition. And the fourth category is a frontier, 19%, which is where the individual AI practice and organizational AI conditions are both very high. Now, if you see, however, on this report, the bulk of it is about 50%, which is a category they call emergent, which is the fifth category, which is right in the middle of all these quadrants. It overlaps across these four quadrants. And here the individual AI practice and organizational conditions are taking still shape, which means that these are still evolving, emerging, and that's why not it's not a good thing to be in the middle, because you basically have both things are emerging, evolving. That's a positive side, but the other thing is that there is no clear direction, right? There's no clear alignment, and it's a messy situation. um, the report is also talking about something called transformation paradox. Transformation paradox is where employees are ready to reinvent how they work, but the system around them, like metrics, incentives, norms, structure, right, they continue to reinforce the old way. So that is a problem, because the forces are accelerating AI adoption are also holding it back, and that's a transformation paradox. So what they're saying is that the leadership must redesign the system to match the work, and leaders are basically, I would say, accountable to re-architect the way things happen, the way the work is done, so that the employees can actually really deliver with those capabilities. So those are some of the key findings that came out of this report. Jamie, this report is freely available for anybody, and I would highly recommend for people to actually go through this report, because there are some really, really exciting learning that actually came out in this report. For example, it also talked about that the biggest constraint is not technology, but the organizational readiness. It could be basically culture, leadership, and operating models drive over 2 times more impact than individual effort. So individuals can only go so far if the organization is not ready to actually go. And only 19% of our organizations are fully aligned, which is what they classify as a frontier. Now, agent adoption is accelerating rapidly, like 15 times year on year growth in Microsoft 365, which requires, you need to be ready with that. Enterprise grade governance, security, and lifecycle management. So I think all in all, employee and organization readiness both are like a two wheels in a you can say bike, and if one of them doesn't go at the same speed as the other one, you really can't achieve it. You can imagine what kind of mess it will be.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of great information you just shared. A lot of great nuggets. I mean, I was listening as well as I was reading the material as well. But there's a couple of things that pop out to me. I think of the ways that we work. Specifically here at Microsoft and the things that we do. Certainly, we're kind of like leading as example in terms of frontier. But some of the things that you cited, like frontier professionals, 16% of that actually lead adoption by doing multi-step, and that is truly the things that we do today. And I think about other types of work that's actually done, like doing the highly cognitive type of work efforts, how that's shifting. And you mentioned things like taking notes. Yeah, definitely, those are things that I think most people, theoretically, most people are seeing in the business world, especially where they've adopted some level of AI, whether or not they know it or not, in terms of like embedded in Zoom or Teams. Those are things that are cropping through, and I think it's more or less this like those companies that are really trying to be on the front edge or changing things. That's relatively small. I would say for the folks that are listening to this, you're in this space. You're not you're not normal. That's not the way I wanted to put it, but you're not in the average set of people and or companies. We kind of take things for granted, and I think this lays a good foundation for that thinking in terms of like this work trend index and how most companies are actually doing things or lack thereof.
Yeah, Jamie, you reminded me about a saying, right? When the big data came, right? There was actually really good slide somebody had created like almost like 10 years ago, when big data was on, like it's just about catching up, right? It was emerging, and there was a slide about that big data is like teenage sex, right? Everybody thinks everybody else is doing it. Nobody knows how to do it. Everybody thinks, that if I don't do it, like it is like this, right? So I think that AI is also the same thing, that people don't know where they are in the overall benchmark, right? Everybody thinks that maybe I'm not doing enough, right? A lot of people are worried about that. Am I doing enough? Am I using it enough? Or am I falling behind, etc. Because the pace of the change is so far, so much more compared to what used to happen in the past, like when the big data was emerging, right? It's still easy to catch up, but in this case, you fall behind 2 weeks, you don't read up, you don't, it becomes a mess, right? You start feeling that you are already behind, and that's why it is very important. And it's also a reminder to everybody that make sure that you keep listening to our podcast and other podcasts, and just keep spending maybe a couple of hours every week on brushing up, right? So that you don't feel like you fell behind.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's like you said, it's like where are you in that spectrum, and you probably think that you're not far enough along, but again, like I said, if you're listening to this, you're probably way in front of not only your peers but lots of other folks that are out there not doing anything or lack thereof. So this is going to be a nice little segue when we talk about using these tools. Let's talk about enterprise implementation. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that there's not a lot of firms that have real deep enterprise expertise internally. Some people might know a little bit, some might know a little bit more, but true enterprise scale development on building agents, that's not a wide skill right now. So how do we help? Or how does the industry help? Organizations get the level of expertise that they need. Well, the frontier firms themselves are taking it upon themselves to create capabilities within their own organizations to help enterprises implement. So OpenAI and Anthropic this week have announced that they're making some pursuits on doing ventures, not joint ventures with them, but doing ventures that will create the sub organizations, or whether or not it's like this parent child relationship, whatever. But it's building a enterprise organization that is consultative in nature, that will help with, deploying AI services, engineering, and ultimately, really, it's consulting to strengthen what these enterprises actually need in terms of helping build their next application or agents, or combination of all of the above. So the intent here, it's obviously rooted in the fact that companies like OpenAI and Anthropic want to see their models succeed. And how do you do that? Well, you need to build a consultative arm that drives the deployment, drives the engineering work, and ultimately will drive the market share for those organizations. So what's been reported is that OpenAI has a joint venture. It's called the Deployment Company, which they're raising nearly $4 billion from major investors to fund acquisitions and scale the use of AI in terms of overall, like, customer adoption capacity. So the intent here is that they're looking, at least OpenAI is looking to fund a large portion of what may be acquisitions of smaller companies that focus on deployment and development of OpenAI based applications or agents that are built. Anthropic is basically doing the same, granted not for $1 billion worth, but still $1.5 billion to basically either buy or implement these ventures that are focused again on acquiring the right skills, the right companies, service firms that actually do this today.
Yeah, and Jimmy, actually, this one actually surprised me a little bit. What the signal that it is really sending is that, um, is there a struggle with, there are tons of consulting firms, like, I mean, from the big four to every big four has basically their own consulting arms, claiming to help with the AI strategy as well as the deployment. And then there are lots of system integrators who each of them have been claiming to have trained millions of people in the AI and they're ready to roll. So what is happening? Why the Anthropic and OpenAI has to take it upon themselves to do this? That is a signal, basically, that they probably don't trust. Maybe the adoption, maybe the execution is flailing. Something is happening there, Jamie. Right? I mean, it isn't so easy. In fact, if you see this, it is something similar to, however, what big techs are also doing, right? I mean, like, Microsoft also has this cloud accelerate factory, right? We are also actually helping execute those deployments, not totally relying on the partner side, because some of the deployments are so important. And many times, what happens is that the customers don't really want to bring a third party. They want the providers to also help. Now, that could be another possible reason and the trend. How Microsoft help customers with the factory. Similarly, I think the OpenAI and Anthropic, they're also trying to set up some sort of a factory. This is like a model also which Palantir also follow, which is basically forward deployed engineers, right? So, but interesting insight, to be honest. It raised some questions, and I'm still not sure what exactly is the cost, but interesting move. Anyway, moving on quickly, the Anthropic actually launched the 10 ready to use AI agent templates for financial services, covering workflows like pitch book creation, financial modeling, KYC screening, valuation checks, and month end closure. These are agents are basically a reference architecture, you can say, combining the domain skills like connectors, sub agents, skills, and you can use them as the plugins. So, like, if you have a co work, or if you have a cloud code, or you can use them as a cookbook for the managed agent. You can create them. They all come with basically the connectors. The entire framework is there. Entire architecture is there. You can just easily install them. You go to the cover, you can actually find these plugins and you can install them, and then you connect them, give that connection to your preset data repository, wherever it is, and then it can start executing those. So basically, kind of agent that you're basically deploying. So it's pretty good. It's very productive, like using these agents. And I would assume that some of the some company will suffer in the coming week because of these launches, because market will think that that company is going to be dead now because Cloud has launched a new kind of agent. But anyway, this is actually I would highly recommend people who are in that industry and those kind of roles to actually try these kind of agent and see how well it works. It can really help them. And you can also actually use them within the M365 integration as well, because Claude has plugins there as well. You can actually try to use some of these possibly, but mainly it is for the co-work, Cloud Code, and using them as a managed agents.
So what's interesting to me, and I'll leave this one really short, but if you go back, I think it was like maybe 6 months ago, maybe a little bit more. OpenAI had said that they were going to be thinking about developing, like business related agents. It was almost like, hey, this would take the place of an employee. And again, it would be like financial analyst agent, and they were going to charge anywhere between 25,000 to $50,000 per agent. I kind of think of what Anthropic just launched, and maybe it's not exactly to what OpenAI was going to do, but they threw that out there. They have these financial modeling, your customer screening. These are things that OpenAI had talked about. Ultimately, what I'm getting at is that this is really the commoditization of the agents, and it's almost like Anthropic or Microsoft um, or OpenAI, they have to put these things out, because how do you differentiate yourself and your platform for others while giving more value without charging too much? So to me, I think this ultimately is a win-win for everybody, especially on the business side, because we're getting, not only just the ability to build agents, but these out-of-the-box agents that we can just connect it to. Now, obviously, there's some pricing associated with it, whether or not it's just going to be token-based. So nothing in this world is free, but I've seen the pathway, that the entry to, or the barrier to entry, is a lot cheaper than maybe what was thought of 6 months, 9 months ago. So, what's been the number one gripe with Anthropic over the last, I'll call it even the last 18 months? It's not about the models not being good. It's being able to actually use the models, because they have some very low token usage limits on, even on their paid tiers. I had a Anthropic paid subscription for a little while, just to kind of kick the tires on it, and I ran out of my tokens on the small plan very quickly. So why am I mentioning this? Well, there is a deal that was been struck between SpaceX and Anthropic. So SpaceX is providing to Anthropic 200,000, potentially more than that, NVIDIA GPUs in their Colossus One supercomputer data center, whatever you want to call that. And what this means to Anthropic is they could open up the floodgates a little bit more on the token usage across the board on its models. So at least for some of its products. So what this ultimately means, and what was interesting, is that Anthropic actually came up with, or its own post talking about this, but effective immediately, it's doubling what you could do on Claude Code in terms of rates, and that's for users of Claude on Pro, Max, and Team, seat-based enterprise plans. It's also removing peak hour, yeah, I could say that one, peak hour restrictions on the use of Claude Code, as well as just raising the limits on what you could do with Claude Opus models through the API direct calls. So this has basically been one of the main complaints of Anthropic. If you could pick on anything, it's been like how limiting their plans have been on usage and token capabilities. And I think a lot of that's just because they didn't have the resources to really just open up the floodgates on, like, similar to what OpenAI has done. So this enables them to do more, and I think will help to quell some of the complaints, quote unquote, that developers or users have had. The Claude, Anthropic's got great models in Claude, but the ability to actually use them. And one for me that's used a lot of Claude Code and co-work, that you can very quickly run through your tokens using those things. So this is an interesting development with Anthropic and SpaceX. All right, so let's talk about some new models. So OpenAI just released some new models. I think it was like 48 hours ago. We're recording this on May 8th, so literally 2 days prior. So these are new models that revolve around voice and speech. So three models. One is the Translate. So this is the ability for GPT real-time translate. So this is a purpose-built continuous real-time auto translation. So this basically enables the chunks that people actually do. So the audio, this processes it in a stream. So enables it to be continuous for translated speech. The other one is real-time whisper. This is for streaming transcription. This is a low latency streaming speech to text model designed to run alongside the speech to speech and translation. So the last one is speech to speech. So this is the GPT Realtime 2. So this is a speech to speech model. But what's different about this is not only does it have improved ability for its tokens or the context window, but it's a reasoner. It's a reasoning model connected with into this. And there's actually three different modes: minimal, low, and or actually four: minimum, low, medium, and high. And that's to actually provide an adjustable reasoning context within the use of that model. And so this is obviously a interesting thing to bring into real time, because instead of what we had before in the real time 1.5 and 1, which did not have reasoning into it, you had to inject a whole lot of things into that model. So this will now do it automatically. One other thing that OpenAI, by the way, that the GPT Real-Time 2 will be available next week, I believe, also simultaneously inside of Microsoft Foundry as well. The other thing is that OpenAI put out something called GPT 5.5 Instant, and this is really meant for a lightweight chat environment. So it used to be called, or it is called now, Chat Latest in the API, but this will begin rolling out within Microsoft Foundry as well, called Chat Latest. So this builds upon the 5.4 and 5.3 GPT chat models, and this is focused on just chat interactions, but it looks to improve upon things that were there for factual accuracy, tool calling, response efficiency, and just overall robustness in the tool. So the bottom line is that OpenAI is not just resting on the 5.5 model that's out there, but chat or real-time chat, and then the chat models for instant, but then brings in real-time speech, real-time transcription, and real-time live translation. So a lot that OpenAI is putting out there, other than just the frontier models.
Awesome. I think a couple of quick launches as well from Amazon. Amazon launched Agent Core. It is basically Agent Core payments, and it's in preview. It's launched together with Coinbase and Stripe. What happens is when you deploy the agent, generally when it comes to, let's say, for paying for something, that's where the problems start. Right now, enabling payments by the agent requires you have to build often a customized system for billing, credential management, compliance, and all that. Right, sensitive area. So that is the problem. But with this agent core payments, which is now in preview, it's the first kind of a managed payment capability, which is built for autonomous agents. You can set spending limits, you can define some of those control parameters, and then agents transact within those controls without, not like an open-ended access to the funds, right? So, governed access, you can say, for the payments by the agent. In other news, Salesforce Headless 360 is here. Headless, I didn't mean senseless, but Headless 360 is the branding name. Basically, you don't anymore require a browser to access the Salesforce system and the data. The entire Salesforce, Agentforce, and Slack platforms are now exposed as APIs, MCP, and CLI. So you can basically, what that means is, not so useful for humans, but basically for agents. Now, agents can actually access the data, workflows, tasks directly, whether it's in Slack, Voice, or anywhere your business runs. So this is basically pivoting for the agentic enterprise, this change. Okay. And with that, I think that wraps the week, JB. Covers everything that we had to talk today.
Yeah, again, it always never ceases to amaze me on how much is there for each week that's out there. I'll give a little preview where this is going to be. What this is, episode 99, right?
Yep.
So we're going to hit 100 next episode, which will be next week. So we'll probably do a little bit of fanfare, maybe kind of like a recap review, but I think maybe we'll also start something that talks about the way that Shadab and I are using AI as well. Maybe you call it practical ways of using AI, but give you a little glimpse on the way that we use it, not only in our work life, but personal life as well, since I do use AI in both. So we'll maybe start that for our 100th episode. Who knows if we'll keep on doing it, but maybe at least for the 100, we'll do that. And I'll give you another little glimpse. I've been tinkering over the last couple of days with OpenClaw, so maybe I'll talk about that on episode 100, or maybe even just record a separate snackable for a lab episode. So keep that in mind, and keep on listening, subscribe, tell your friends, and look forward to the next episode.
Be there with us for the episode 100. Yes, there will be some good new launches that we will do as part of the how we cover the news launches and all this thing. AI at work is coming.
Yeah.
Bye, Jimmy. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye bye.